So, tonight, I have the great pleasure of welcoming Kayla McKeon to share her story with us. Kayla is an international ambassador at DSI, Downs Syndrome International, where both the Norwegian and the Swedish Association are members. Kayla is also the manager of the Grassroots Advocacy for the National Down Syndrome Society, NDSS, where she works to advance legislation beneficial to the Down syndrome community. So, a very warm welcome, Kayla, and I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you, Karen. Godval, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. And good evening from the United States. And good morning to all my new friends joining us here today. How is everyone doing? And please feel free to type in the chat box how your day is going. I would like to thank you all for inviting me here today to speak to all of you. As you know, my name is Kayla McKeon, and I am the manager of Grassroots Advocacy at the National Down Syndrome Society in Washington, D.C. So we're going to start talking about my very early years. And I'm going to share the story of how I came to work for the National Down Syndrome Society. But the story really starts much earlier in my life. I was born with Down syndrome in Syracuse, New York, home of the Orange. So some people might know what Down syndrome is, and some who don't. For those who don't, as you may know, in every cell in a human body, there is a nucleus where genetic material is stored in genes. Typically, the nucleus cell contains 23 pairs of chromosomes, and half of which are inherited from each parent. Down syndrome occurs when an individual has a full or partial copy of chromosome 21, also known as trisomy 21. This additional genetic material alters the course of development and causes the characteristics associated with Down syndrome. A few of the most common physical traits of Down syndrome are low muscle tone, which I find in my fingertips, a small stature, I am short, an upper slant to the eyes, and a single decrease in the center of the palm. Although each person with Down syndrome is a unique individual and may possess some of these characteristics to different degrees or some not at all. And I'm happy to see new friends with Down syndrome here today. And I would like to tell you thank you a bit about my school years. So early on in my life, my parents decided that my Down syndrome diagnosis would not define me, that I would be able to accomplish anything that I set my mind to with the guidance and support of my family, my peers, and my circle of support, which is made up of friends, and most of whom are teachers. But this support helps me to reach my life goals. When I was 18 months old, my parents enrolled me in an early education program at Main Street School. I did progress through school alongside my classmates, and I did graduate at age 18. And as soon as inclusive education became possible, I always was an inclusive setting, but I won't deny there's some bumps and stumbling blocks along the way. But my parents always thought it was best for me to be included and reach. And it was best for me to be with my classmates along the way. But my parents always thought it was best for me to be included with my classmates and facing settings that challenged me. And they always thought it was but for me to be included with my classmates. I'm sorry for being so repetitive. And placing settings that challenged me to reach my highest potential. There were times when they pushed me, but always because they knew I could succeed. The hardest years were the ones that my teachers did not believe in me, but the years that my teachers and support staff encouraged me and believed in me were the years that I grew the most. The ability I had from a young age to be included with my peers and pushed to reach my highest potential helped shape me into being the most independent version of myself from the very beginning. And now I want to tell you a little bit about my Special Olympic experiences. When I was 13 years old, I got involved with Special Olympics. And to this day, I still play many sports each season. And for joining Special Olympics for me was a huge turning point. It was because, and it was through Special Olympics, that I had met some of the most impactful coaches, mentors, and friends. But it also was giving me the opportunity to give my first speech. And wow, can you believe it? I found out I really liked it. Loved it. And then that I had the ability to speak for others who could not speak for themselves. I continue to speak. On behalf of Special Olympics, as a Congress member and ambassador for them, I even got the opportunity to travel to Athens, Greece, as a World Game athlete in 2011. And I competed this past June in USA Games in Orlando, Florida. Pretty cool, right? If you thought that was cool, you should see the gold medal from USA Games that I won. It was quite the experience. Speaking of Special Olympics helped me find my passion for public speaking. But no, it did not end there. My aunt started writing letters on my behalf for local speaking engagements here in Syracuse, New York. And it worked out. I was able to go into local schools and educate students on what it is like to have Down syndrome and inspire them to be the best versions of themselves. In my career at the National Down Syndrome Society, I regularly educate others on Down syndrome and advocacy by speaking at conferences, on panels, at events such as this, at elementary schools, middle schools, colleges, and even the School of Nursing. I try to motivate them. I try to motivate listeners to do the best that they can do. My message to kids, to everyone, is to persevere and never give up. And I tell parents, don't limit your children. I also like to say, don't squash our dreams. Good. Thank you. I have a passion for speaking and motivating others to strive their best and never give up. When speaking, I tell audiences that we are living proof of much more of what is expected of us and all the things that we are capable of doing. I tell them about my friends who own businesses that are thriving, like my friend John Cronin of John's Crazy Socks, or Blake Pyron, who owns Big Snow Shack in Sanger, Texas. I tell them about my peers with Down syndrome while breaking down barriers every day, such as Carrie Boudron, with a third-degree black belt in karate, Watch Out, and Maya Peterson, a self-advocate who dedicated her life to advocating for individuals with disabilities. And she was the first member on the NDSS board of directors with Downs syndrome. I could go on and on, but at that, I think we'll be here all day, so I don't think I will. But I know that we are exceeding expectations every day. My message is always clear. Do not limit us. So let's go back to my education. Thank you. In high school, I earned awards in 8th and 9th grades for character, commitment, and courage. Also in English and math. My final grade for algebra was in the 90s. I got 93 in my state exams. And that is something that's very hard to do, especially here in Syracuse, New York. I had also started attending my local college, taking some non-credit courses. And I started thinking to myself, this doesn't make sense. I'm doing all this work without earning any credits. But I like the classes. So I began taking one course per semester for credit. And I can happily say, after a very long 12 years, I finally obtained my associate's degree cum laude last May, and I graduated with my peers. I'm extremely excited. Can you tell? Throughout my life, there has been one common theme, whether it's through my education or my experiences with special Olympics. And when I'm given the opportunity to try, I will succeed and exceed expectations. Let's go do some work experiences, shall we? Thank you. And yes, the theme is still true for my work experiences too. And throughout my time in school, working is a huge top priority of mine. And before I started working with the National Downs Syndrome Society, I had a couple of jobs. I used to work at the Syracuse Post Standard in the Human Resource Department. I would assist in the archive section and assist with setting up events. I even had my own byline in the newspaper. I also had a job at the Paparazzi Spa and Day Salon, where I would be at the front desk greeting customers as they walked in, and sometimes would assist in cleaning up. But my favorite part was interacting with the customers. If you couldn't already tell, I am a people person. So the front desk is where you would originally find me mostly. I worked there for 14 years. My mentor, Rachel, provided me support when I was working at the salon. I really did benefit from Rachel, providing me with clear instructions and a checklist, and of course support when I needed it. I also held a volunteer position at my local community center, which is known as the gym. I'm close by, and I was at the front desk of greeting patrons and checking in the membership. I loved it. But the mission and vision of NDSS envisions a world where people with disabilities are fully included in the workplace and communities. I know from first-hand experience how valuable this is. I would not be where I am today if it had not been for my parents, for my role models, teachers, employers, and colleagues. And not just because Anna's my boss and she is fantastic at her job. and peers who included me, the non-disabled peers, in all aspects of my life. So let's talk about some advocacy and how I got started. Now I told you I was going to share how I got my job with the National Downs Syndrome Society, and everything started in 2016 when I met a man named John Katko in my hometown of Syracuse, New York. Mr. Katko was running to be a member of the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. The House of Representatives are the people who represent us in our government. It was a really big deal to be a member of the House of Representatives. He handed me his business card, so I handed him mine. He called me and said he was elected. He wanted me to come and work for him. But guess what? He won his election, and I became a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. And I became an intern, for 2 years. I had the opportunity to represent him at different events, such as citizenship awards, and worked in his office alongside his other employees, which I became best friends with. I was a valuable member of Representative Katko's office. And yes, I brought a unique perspective to the office that many others could. So let's talk about a little bit about NDSS mission and vision. In June of 2017, the representative asked me to go with him for a disability conference in Washington, D.C. And I didn't realize at that time the trip would turn to much more than a conference. The conference was put on by the National Downs Syndrome Society. And at the end of the conference, NDSS offered me my job of manager of Grassroots Advocacy, which means that I am the first registered lobbyist of Down syndrome. NDSS is the leading human rights organization for all individuals with Down syndrome. We envision a world in which all people with Down syndrome have the opportunity to enhance quality of life, realize their life aspirations, and become valued members of welcoming communities. Here at NDSS, the Down syndrome community is at the heart of everything we do. So let's talk about me being a lobbyist. So as a manager of Grassroots Advocacy, I work to advance legislation beneficial to the Down syndrome community. I do this by educating myself on issues that our community is facing and how policy can support us to reach for our fullest potential. I work alongside a dedicated policy team at NDSS to advocate for policy at the federal, state, and local levels that benefits people with Down syndrome and, of course, other disabilities. I create relationships with members of Congress and other elected officials so they can see the people behind the policy. Our voices need to be heard by our elected officials. And I am so very proud making my voice heard, loud and clear on a national level. I became the first person with Down syndrome in the United States to be a lobbyist. You may be wondering, what is a lobbyist? To let you know, I am the good kind of lobbyist. A lobbyist is someone who lobbies or advocates to elected officials on issues that are important to them. Can you believe that I was the first person with Down syndrome in the United States to do that? Wow! I am super proud to be able to say that I am the first registered lobbyist with Down syndrome in the USA. So as a lobbyist, I love to travel. So I travel to Washington, D.C. all the time, meetings and events. And I get to hang out with pretty cool and important people. But I love my job. And I love lobbying on issues that impact people with Down syndrome and other disabilities. And this is why I love the work that I do and why the work I do is so important. And there are things that you can do too. So here's a few ways that you can be an advocate. As you can see, that you can change the world. You can ensure that the voices of people with disabilities are at the forefront of these conversations, since these issues directly impact us. Nothing should be about us without us. It is so important that our voices are heard. You can make sure that the myths and misconceptions about people with disabilities are eradicated in your community. Down syndrome and other disabilities doesn't stop us. It never stops us. There's some old and antiquated laws and ideas and policies that hold us back. And lastly, you can get involved with policy work, just like me. You can be a lobbyist for a day. Because I love working on advocacy and policy, because I know that I am helping to bring about change on a broader scale. Sometimes it can be slow and difficult, and that's okay too. But please do know that our voices are louder together, that we are stronger when we are united. You can use your voice as an individual and as an organization to help advocate for a better world for people with disabilities. So 2 of my favorite quotes. 1, nothing about us without us. And we are more alike than different. I thank you so very much. And I look forward again to speaking with all of you. This has been very instrumental. And I really look forward to continuing our conversations with the leaders in this room. And I really appreciate every one of you. If you'd like to stay connected with me, this is my contact information, as well as our NDSS social media on this. I hope you have questions, because I am ready to take them from the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, we'll just shut down the presentation. There we go. Yeah. Thank you so very much for sharing your interesting and inspiring story with us, Kayla.
Thank you.
Are indeed stronger together. Thank you. We will now have time for some questions that have come into the chat during your presentation.
Sure.
Yeah, and I will read this aloud, and we will take them one by one. And I also want to say to the audience that you're more than welcome to write comments or questions to Kayla in the chat as we speak. And a small warning is that there might not be time for all the questions. So, but let's start. I just have to, yeah. So I just want to share some comments as well. So from Anne, she says that you're great, Kayla, well done. And Martin writes, and you speak very inspiring too. And then there's Angelica that has several questions. So I start with some of your questions, Angelica, and then we'll see how far we go. Yes. So Kayla, did you need any extra help during your studies in school?
When I was in school, I used to stay up past midnight with my parents doing math homework because math at that point was not my strongest suit. So my parents were my support in doing that.
Hmm. And did you feel that the teachers gave you the support you needed?
Some teachers did, yes. Not all teachers, unfortunately.
No, I see. And then there's a question, is there anything that you feel challenging about having Down syndrome?
About having Down syndrome. I love having Down syndrome because it makes me who I am. I don't find the only challenge sometimes, because people do live under the parents' roof, and that's great. That's very cool. But I moved out of my parents' house, so I've been able to have my own freedom and drive because I do have my license. So the only one challenge is not getting back on the road again.
Thank you, Kayla. So do you have a driver license?
I do, yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Kari Anna, she has a question, and she writes, I'm impressed that you dare to be a lobbyist. It's a tough job. I guess that you'll make a great difference for many people. It's a comment.
Thank you. And you could be a lobbyist too, and maybe you have some idea how you can advocate in your area yourself.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. That is true. Karina writes, you're such a great source of inspiration. Thank you so much, Kayla.
Thank you.
And then there's Anna that writes, thank you for a wonderful speech. And then, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something, Kayla?
I was just going to say I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And then there's a question here. So, NDSS vision. Is it easy to reach the goals? Do you have enough support? Or is it a reluctance in the society against people with Down syndrome?
So yes, we do live up to our NDSS mission, and there are many goals that we do have. Just take it step by step, and sometimes breaking things apart does help too.
So step by step, we're getting there.
Yes.
That's yes.
Making them down does help because some people are visual. I am one of them. So visual helps me out big time.
It's visual support.
Yes.
Yes. Great to hear that you have that support. Yes. And then there's a comment and a question from Martin. What you tell us about your story and your job in Congress is really fantastic. How does other members of Congress use the opportunity of getting your knowledge and views on things?
So I like to say that members of Congress put on their pants one leg at a time because it's easy to talk to them, and it's harder for them to say no to a self-advocate than it is to somebody else. Let's just say, but they also have the knowledge behind what we're talking to them about. They have an idea of what we want to talk to them about.
Yes. So
you wouldn't know beforehand, because we always go back and forth with the email.
Understand. So it's more difficult to say that I don't want to listen to a person with Down syndrome having things to say about self-advocacy and living.
Absolutely.
Yes, living with a disability. Yes, that sounds very true. Thank you, Kayla.
Yes.
Eva writes, thank you for sharing the important work that you do.
Thank you.
And then there's Simona. She writes, Kayla, great job with representation. Your drive and determination are very inspiring. And I couldn't agree more. That's so true.
I'm very, very honored.
And then El Hussein writes, thanks a lot for the wonderful talk. What would you give us as parents for a wonderful child with Down syndrome as advice with raising our kids? And what would you give others as advice to treat people with Down syndrome, how to meet people with Down syndrome? Let's start with the first question, I think. So
sure.
What would you give as advice for parents that have a child with Down syndrome? Do you have any advice for those?
Absolutely, I have advice. I say, congratulations, you have a beautiful baby girl or a beautiful baby boy. Always congratulate them. And then always help them with support, and you can always call NDSS for any of our resources. We have a couple of one-pagers that might be beneficial to them. But don't limit them, because we are very capable of doing anything that we set our minds to. So don't slow us down.
That's a really, really good advice, I think. So take help from your associations with material and knowledge, and don't stop you. Let the child guide you. Yes, that is a really good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla.
Sure.
And then the second part of the question is, what would you give others as advice to treat people with Down syndrome? I think the meaning is to meet people with Down syndrome.
Okay, so if you haven't met one person with Down syndrome, you just did. You met one person with Down syndrome, because some of us are people person. Like myself, I love meeting all of you. So you just met me, and I have Down syndrome. So meeting somebody that is differently able, take the time to talk to them. Get to know them. Easy to talk to.
Yes.
And I love meeting new people, so I love meeting all of you. And I already know you, sorry.
Thank you, Kayla. Yes, it's true, so true. Meeting one person with Down syndrome is meeting one person with Down syndrome. So, yes. Yes, and then there's a question that's kind of similar to the question before here from Simona. Do you have any advice for the parents who just got a beautiful baby boy with Down syndrome? So a small child with Down syndrome.
Right. So again, we're going to say congratulations. You just have a beautiful baby boy. Love them, welcome them, do everything that you can for them. And then if you need help along the way, there's always parents you can reach out to. There's always guidelines to help you. You can always visit our website at NDSS.org, and we can give you lots of information. Come and join our events. You can see what we do and what we are about, because you can have that first-hand knowledge yourself.
Thank you, Kayla. And I think that we are about to wrap up things, but there is a comment from Gerald here. Thank you so much for your presentation. You're such an inspiration. You are a true hero, and a big part from you, Hannah and Gerald. And
you guys are my role model, so thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Kayla. And now the time is soon to be due, and all that remains for me is to thank everyone for tonight. Thank you for everyone registered for this webinar, for being interested in the talk. And thank you to all of you participating for spending your evening with us. And thank you, Anna Fedeva from National Down Syndrome Society, for all your administrative help. And thank you to Down Syndrome International and National Down Syndrome Society for the groundbreaking work you are doing on self-advocacy. And a very warm and special thanks goes to you, Kayla, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
By sharing your story, you are giving the voice to people with Down syndrome, and you are increasing knowledge and reducing prejudices against people with Down syndrome. And thank you for doing so.
Absolutely. If you have any other questions, please feel free to send them my way.
Thank you. There's someone that really wants to have us a question. I just have to look. I've missed a question from Stephanie that my colleague says that I should read it aloud. I can't see the question from Stephanie. It's Mikael. It's you that write that there's some special.
I can ask it if that's okay.
Perfect. You please.
Hi, Kayla. I'm actually Canadian, but I'm living in Sweden, so it's lovely to hear another English speaker as well. I just wanted to ask you, is there anything specific that you're working on right now, or anything that you're really hoping to change with your job?
We are working on a few current pieces of legislation, but we're also waiting for this Congress to come through before we start driving home those pieces. We're working on a back end to work on those. So yeah, there's a couple of specific pieces. We're just trying to figure things out on our end, but before the 118th Congress comes through.
Kayla, I was going to say, this is Anna from NDSS. Kayla, you're welcome to share what some of those pieces look like. Most of them are all pretty solidified, so you're more than welcome to share a few more details, maybe your top 3 that you hope to see accomplished. Would that work?
Sure, thanks. So we're currently working on the Charlotte Woodward Organ Transplant Prevention Act, just named after my friend Charlotte, who's also another co-worker of ours. We're currently working on, can you handle that one, Anna? Sorry.
Of course. So you want me to share a little bit about Charlotte's bill? Okay. So we have a bill here in the Congress in the United States called the Charlotte Woodward Organ Transplant Discrimination Prevention Act. It's a really, really long title, so it takes a lot of practice to remember it. But it's about organ transplant discrimination, and it's named after one of our self-advocates on our staff, whose name is Charlotte Woodward, and similar to Kayla, she's a self-advocate with Down syndrome, but she had a life-saving heart transplant when she was very, very young. We know that heart conditions are very common in the Down syndrome community, and she needed this heart transplant to save her life. Unfortunately, she was able to access it without a problem, but here in the United States, we have a really big problem with people with Down syndrome and other disabilities being denied access to organ transplants because they have Down syndrome. And so we have pioneered this legislation. Charlotte has really been the leader of it, and Kayla and I get to support and advocate alongside the rest of the Down syndrome community on the bill. But it really just, the goal is to ensure that whether you have a disability or not, you have access to life-saving healthcare and treatment that is free from discrimination. So that's one of our our top priorities at the moment. And Kayla, if you want to maybe share one or two more, and I can help as needed with details. Thanks. What are some other ones you'd like to see passed this year?
Well, we're also working on the Transformation to Competitive Integrated Employment Act. People are, like me, are still getting paid cents an hour. So we're trying to phase that out, and hopefully in the next 6 years. And it's within the 1938 Fair Labor and Standards Act. So we're trying to phase out sub minimum wage so people can get paid a fair wage, equal pay for equal work, so we can be paid just like everybody else. That's good, right, Anna?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. We want everyone to have equal pay.
And then lastly is the marriage access bill for people with Down syndrome and other disabilities. And yes, I did that one last on purpose because I am very, very passionate about this bill. Let's say me and my boyfriend decide to get married. Our incomes will combine and we will both lose our benefits. And we won't be able to get married because as either married the love of your life or keeping your better benefits like SSI, Medicaid, and Medicare. And sometimes you have to pick and choose. Well, sometimes I don't want to pick and choose. I want both. But unfortunately, we can because of that limitation. And since I had the boyfriend, I'm just waiting on the ring. But I had to wait until this passes as well.
Yeah, so to clarify, here in the United States, people with disabilities can get married. However, it just impacts their ability to access their government benefits, which are things like their government health care and disability insurance and things like that. So it is, they're allowed to get married. It just makes it not what most people choose to do. Yeah, it makes it very financially difficult. Thank you. Thank you, Kayla. So we want to make sure that individuals are able to marry whoever they love and it doesn't impact their ability to get their government benefits. And Kayla's very motivated personally on this issue.
Oh, very. It's unhealthy, but yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That was really great to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yes, and now let's move over to some of there has popped in some more comments. So I just want to share them before we end the evening. So El Hussein writes, wonderful, thanks a lot for the precious advices. And Lisa writes, thank you, great presentation and advice. And Jenny writes, thank you for a great and inspirational speech. So, and with these words, we will end this webinar. So we have recorded this webinar and we will post this recording on both the Swedish Association's webpage and YouTube channel and the Norwegian Association's webpage. So we wish everyone in Norway and Sweden a pleasant evening and a good night. And for you in the United States, we wish you a good afternoon. So bye-bye, everyone, and thank you.